Two scientists recently spent 2 weeks on the islands surveying the coastal waters for tiny critters as a part of a new research project. The ESB grant-funded project brings together the British Antarctic Survey, the South Atlantic Environmental Research Institute, and the Cape Horn International Centre to better understand coastal insect species across the Antarctic and subantarctic.
Well, we have a project in collaboration with SAERI in which we are looking to understand the patterns of distribution of native and non-native insects, particularly focusing on those insects that live in the coast. So we're looking for new species, but we're also looking at distribution and how they distribute along the coast and around the islands, and how they compare to those that we can also find in the Cape Horn Biosphere Reserve, and how they can be linked as well to the Antarctic and subantarctic history.
We know that certain of the insects that you get on Navarino, you now find here. And that tells us that there is some sort of link between Navarino and here that we weren't aware of. We didn't even know these insects occurred here. So suddenly this becomes part of the jigsaw, putting together all of the high latitudes, South Atlantic and South America, Antarctic Peninsula region. So we collect specimens here, we preserve them in ethanol. Some of those are destined for various molecular biology analyses, and that tells you how different species or different populations are related. And forms of that analysis tell you how long ago they joined together, or how far they've diverged over time since they separated. We don't know the answer to that at the moment, so we don't know, for instance, did the insects that are here in the Falklands colonise from South America? Did they do that after the last glaciation? That would be a few thousands to tens of thousands of years. Have they actually been here multi-million year timescales? Because the Falklands hasn't been fully glaciated for a very, very, very long time, if ever. Potentially you could have it the other way around. The Falklands might provide a refuge for the Magellan region. We've been here 2 weeks. In that time we've been able to survey 11 locations, and we'd like to thank multiple landowners and obviously SAERI guys for the assistance in that and the permissions required to do that. We think we've found 4 to 6 distinct fly species, none of which, as far as I'm aware, have previously been recorded in the Falklands.
The talk also centred on the budding relationship between SAERI and the Cape Horn International Centre, also known as CHIC. The centre is on Navarino Island, which is located right at the bottom of Chile, north of Cape Horn. Said to have a similar environment to the Falklands, it also boasts outstanding biodiversity.
It is also located in one of the most pristine areas left in the world, and this map is old, it's from 2003, but it shows the last about 24 or 25 areas left in the world that were pristine at that time. And so what you see here are the different ecosystems in the world that preserve more than 70% of its original vegetation. So the Magellanic Forest is that, but also the Falkland Islands is included right there. But the Magellanic Forest is where we come from, and it is one of the last pristine areas left in the world.
Yet with pristine ecosystems, such as on Navarino, the Falklands and also the wider Antarctic, comes a risk of them being damaged by introductions of non-native species. It's integral to monitor potential invasions from non-native species that could disturb or destroy native ecosystems.
We also want to place the Falklands in the context of invasion routes into the Antarctic, and actually the other way potentially from the Antarctic. It's obviously a logistics centre for getting into the Antarctic. If we move anywhere, we take something with us, so we want to find out whether there's any evidence we are still taking things with us. We undoubtedly have in the past. At present there are 15 published known non-native species established in the Antarctic. That is about to go to 18 because we know of 3 others that are about to be published, but they're not there in the literature yet. Do the same for the subantarctic islands, South Georgia, Marion and so on, all the way around the continent. You get up to about 250, a lot. Half of which were probably introduced in the whaling era. The other half have come in more or less since the mid-20th century, 1950s onwards, scientific era. Part of the rationale for us doing the study we're doing now is looking at these as entirely native species and looking at the clues they give us to the evolution of biodiversity in this entire region.
Invasions of non-native species are usually carried by people, and with the tourism industry expanding, these invasions could become more regular in places across the Antarctic and subantarctic without proper biosecurity measures.
I think the major challenges that we're facing today in Navarino Island and the Cape Horn Biosphere Reserve is the growing interest for tourism and how there are no management plans being installed right now to prevent the incoming of possibly or potentially invasive species. So in terms of biosecurity, that's a high risk for islands that are so remote and that have remained free of invasive species. So that's something that we really have to look for in terms of conservation.
These risks mean that tourism must be led with a consideration for conservation, especially in locations with such pristine and rare ecosystems such as Navarino and the Falklands. A new degree has been launched on Navarino at the Cape Horn campus of the University of Mejías to tackle this issue specifically. Falkland Islanders may even be able to study the interesting course on offer.
The career that we have there is a technical career, a technical degree on biocultural tourism and conservation. It's a 2-year career and it goes through tourism industry safety, how to manage your own tourism business, and at the same time it has a lot of components on local biodiversity, ecology, climate change, philosophy, arts. So the biocultural concepts encompasses biodiversity in terms of flora and fauna and cultural diversity. So also taking into consideration all the different types of knowledge that inhabit the territory, all into the diverse knowledge systems in which we live in. One way that we are also implementing things is towards having online courses as well, so maybe some people can participate online, and that could maybe be a good way from SAERI to CHIC to interact as well. It would be very beautiful to have more cultural connections between the people that live in Navarino and the people that live here. I think there is a lot of similarities too, because we are islands and the communities are about the same size. So it would be really interesting to see how children at the schools can communicate, how the education communities can become maybe connected somehow.
Whilst this project is focused on some of the smallest species in Antarctic and subantarctic waters, the scope of what this project could bring to the wider understanding of these locations is expansive. Coupled with the opportunities both people within SAERI and the Falklands, as well as CHIC and Navarino, may have access to from this partnership, the project could be extremely beneficial to both island communities.